If you've done any shopping for hand embroidery PDF patterns on Etsy or browsing on Pinterest, odds are you've likely come across some AI generated embroidery hoops. I recently did a basic search on Etsy for some hand embroidery PDF patterns, and it was honestly quite overwhelming the amount of AI generated embroidery patterns showing up on the first page. And I'm not gonna lie, there were quite a few showstoppers. Like, who doesn't want to stitch this? It's absolutely stunning. But reality is, you can't stitch it because it's fake. Like, these stitches aren't even real. Hey, if we haven't met yet, I'm Kylie. I'm a hand embroidery artist and Etsy seller. In this video, I want to share with you how you can spot AI generated embroidery patterns, what these Etsy sellers are actually selling, and how that can help inform your buying decision. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So how can you tell that these patterns are actually generated by AI? Well, there's actually a few telltale signs, and a lot of the telltale signs can be answered by asking these questions. First, you can ask yourself are these stitches real? Can you pick out and say, like, yes, that's a lazy daisy stitch, that's a satin stitch, that's the whipped back stitch? Can you identify them? If you can't, there's a pretty good chance that they're AI generated. So let's go ahead and put this into practice. So for this embroidery hoop, do we see stitches we can identify? Here on the steps, I will say you can definitely see some satin stitches there, but when we look at the rest of the embroidery hoop, it's like, what even are these purple flowers? Like, they literally look like real purple flowers popping out of this embroidery hoop. So we can say this one is definitely AI generated, because how would we even go about stitching this? On this embroidery pattern here, you can also see that it looks like they've tried to use like some satin stitches, but if you use this satin stitch, you know that it goes straight and you can't just like magically curve it. I mean, it looks beautiful if you could curve it, but that's just not reality. You can't stitch like that. So here on the cat's back, you can see like they start white, then fade to gray, then to black. Like, if I was to make like a little outline stitch or a little stem stitch, it wouldn't naturally fade with those colors. And then you can see the eyeballs of this cat. It honestly just like, it looks like it's a black marker on top of this. So we can definitely say that would be a AI generated image. Even though it does look cool, you definitely can't embroider it. On this embroidered bunny, you can also see that these stitches look heavily 3D, and it kind of looks like they're using this short and long stitch like in midair across this ear here, which is definitely not possible. And then here you can also see the shading. It looks like blush was like painted on it, like you can't just transition from those colors like that. So definitely AI generated as well. Another question you can ask yourself is, does anything look off or wonky? You want to look at the embroidery hoop and look at the surrounding objects as well. For example, whenever I look at this image, I'm looking at the surrounding objects here, and things are looking a little wonky. For example, like, what even is this tool? It looks like scissors combined with tweezers, and it's not even connected here at the center. It's just kind of like, I guess, sitting next to each other. And then also, if we look underneath this hand embroidery title, you can see like it kind of looks like some stork scissors, but the actual cutting scissors you can see are right there, and then the handle to the other part of the scissors is right here. It's just like, what even? You can also see in this pattern, if we are looking and studying the image, looking at the surrounding objects, you can see here this kind of little weird stitch, whatever this is, and you can see actually these little decorations on the sides of the image look exactly like that stitch, except they're not even on the embroidery hoop. So things are looking wonky there too. I think another great way to tell if it's AI generated is you can look at these top embroidery hoop knobs. A lot of times AI gets it wrong, because like here you have two of the little twisty knobs. I'm actually not sure what they're called, but either way, it's definitely not a correct normal embroidery hoop. A really helpful telltale sign that something is AI generated is also that there's only one image of the embroidery hoop. So ask yourself, are there multiple photos in the listing, or better yet, is there a video of the finished embroidery hoop? A lot of times, like the real hand embroidery artists that are selling you patterns, they'll include multiple images at different angles and even a video. So if there's only one single picture of this image of your finished embroidery hoop, that is a bit of a red flag, and you might want to steer away from that embroidery hoop, but also cross-reference it with the rest of these signs. And of course, while I finished up my research for this, I actually found an embroidery PDF pattern that has multiple images for it with different backgrounds. However, the key is it's still the exact same, like embroidery hoop from the front angle. So here we can see like it's laid out flat, and we can kind of cross-reference with the video as well. So if we watch this video, they don't show the embroidered finished piece of this little owl. Instead, it's just like a random embroidery hoop that is stitched. It looks very beautiful. But we don't see a video of that finished AI generated image. Then they have some reviews, and then see here we have a different background with like some weird felt blankets meshed together. And then keep going, and we see it comes with like a beginner stitch thing, and so this is what they're selling you, the image here. And then that was our initial image with that background of like the yarns and the bowls. And lastly, it ends with like a greenery. But the key is the image is exactly the same, and it's laid in the same like position of face down. We don't see any side angles. We didn't see a video of it. And so you can also cross-reference it with like, what even are these stitches? I'm not able to tell all of them. Also, are things looking wonky? Yes, they are. What's going on up here? I'm not quite sure. And if we go back to that first initial image, again, this like looks like a pine cone, but it also looks like thread, so things are wonky there as well. What the heck is up with this bead in the corner? So definitely whenever you like cross-reference things don't check out. But for sure, sometimes it can actually be quite difficult to tell if something is AI generated or not, so be sure to check out other Etsy listings, the photos, and just cross-reference it with all of the little things, like even the blanket in the background. It looks like it's like kind of snippets of different blankets faded into each other, so just be sure to cross-reference all the different things. Another thing to ask yourself is, does it look too good to be true? And I think this can kind of be comparable if you're familiar with Snapchat or Instagram and like the beauty filters they have, where they put this fake makeup on, they add some blush, they do something to your lips, and it like beautifies you. I think the same can be kind of said of AI imagery. So oftentimes it kind of like, it looks like it glimmers and it glows and it looks like it beautifies it. So just like super high quality image. You can definitely be on the lookout for that as well. For example, in this one, you can tell that the background has like a really nice blur to it, and this photo looks really good. You can also kind of see like it's a little bit funny that the books on the front, you also have books in the back, so it's like perfectly themed for every embroidery hoop sometimes. But that one just looks like really stunning and really beautiful photography. And then I would say the same is true of this one. It looks very beautiful, very aesthetic. It has that glimmer and glow, but also while you're looking at these patterns, again, be asking yourself the other questions, like, do these stitches look real? Can I even say what they are? Like, these stitches are kind of looking crooked, I can't really tell. So definitely cross-reference as you go as well. Another thing is to kind of cross-reference when you're shopping. If you already saw an AI generated image in an Etsy shop, the odds are probably their whole shop is filled with other AI generated images. Another thing to ask yourself is, are there some crazy deals in this Etsy shop? Oftentimes I'll see like bundles of 800 plus embroidery patterns or 1,000 plus embroidery patterns for a crazy, ridiculously cheap price, like $20. And I can tell you, as a hand embroidery artist, embroidering is a slow art and it takes a lot of time. If I were to add 800 or 1,000 patterns to my shop, that would literally take me like a lifetime. So that right there is a red flag in and of itself. That is very difficult to create that many embroidery patterns. That can be a pretty good sign that something maybe not real stitching is happening in that shop. And after asking yourself all of these questions, if you're still not sure, you can definitely check out the reviews or like comments on Pinterest photos, and usually there are some people that will call it out and say that like this is AI generated. So now that we know what's real and what's fake, the question becomes, what are these Etsy sellers actually trying to sell you? And for the majority, it seems like these Etsy sellers are basically just selling a template, the black and white outline of the pattern. So basically there's no step-by-step stitching, there's no stitch guide, there's no color guide, it's just the template, and whether or not that template is a perfect match to that first AI generated image is up for debate. So they're using that first picture for inspirational stitching and getting people to click on their template to hopefully purchase their PDF pattern, or rather just black and white outline template. And reality is that none of us will ever be able to recreate that inspirational stitching picture, which is actually quite sad if you're a beginner embroiderer and purchase one of these patterns expecting to turn out as pictured, when in reality they have given a fake and poor introduction to the craft. So with these embroidery PDF patterns they're selling, there's no stitch guide, no color guide, no step-by-step directions. It's just a template scaled to different embroidery hoop sizes. And when you put it that way, I honestly don't think it sounds that bad. I think the issue just becomes that they're leading with these beautiful AI generated images that nobody can recreate. One more thing I want to add to the conversation is that in order for these AI machines to create these embroidery hoops, they do have to read other like actual real hand embroidery artists embroidered hoops to be able to create their artificially intelligent created one. And I think that's kind of an issue not just amongst hand embroidery and not even just amongst the art world, but in large, like an issue with like honestly everything, as it's just such a topic of debate right now, and like whether this is right or wrong, or like how we're going to proceed with this in the future. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly, and by no means did I create this video to say don't buy these patterns, rather just to help guide you in your buying decision. If you want just a black and white outline template, but if you are looking for something that's more step by step, stitch by stitch, then you'll definitely want to shop elsewhere besides an AI generated image template. And I will say, if you ever do see like a AI generated image where they're offering to sell you a kit, for that I would maybe gear towards like running away, because we already know we can't recreate that hoop. And with that being said, they're not just selling you an AI generated like template, they're actually trying to help you recreate this thing, which we know you can't. So if you see an AI generated image that's offered in a kit offering, I would honestly steer clear of that, because who the heck knows what you're going to end up stitching in the end. By now, I hope that you're able to tell an AI generated embroidery hoop versus a real hand embroidered hoop, and what these Etsy sellers are selling and how that can help inform your buying decision so that you're getting exactly what you want and what you're paying for. If you are interested in supporting a real stitched hand embroidery artist, I just wanted to share a couple of my favorite hand embroidery pattern artists. So this is Chantel, who owns Magnus and Quill. She has lots and lots of lovely whimsical patterns. She even notes here in her shop announcement that all patterns are created without the use of AI. Magnus and Quill is proudly 100% handmade. And so I just wanted to share my top favorite 100% handmade embroidery artists and also their work. So here you can see a lot of her lovely patterns. She creates such fun outdoorsy themed and animal themed ones. I've purchased a pattern from her before and had a great experience with it, and I love her stitching style. Another hand embroidery artist I love that's on Etsy is Abide Embroidery Co. All these patterns are made by Sarah, and she makes really lovely art out of like scriptures, and I just love her color palettes and her designs. There's so much detail and just so beautiful to hang on your wall. Another shop I really like is Lainey Irene Designs. She creates such beautiful hoops, and I really love the fun embroidery color she uses, and especially like her little village designs where she has a number of houses stitched in a cute array. And then my shop on Etsy is called St. Rogers Street, where I feel like my specialty lies in my custom home portrait PDF patterns. That's where you send me a photo of your home and I turn it in a PDF pattern for you to be able to stitch. So that's just a few of my own shop and my other favorites, but if you have any favorite Etsy shops that sell hand embroidery PDF patterns, I would love it if you would share those in the comments so we can all check them out and support some handmade artists. And then I also actually have a number of free hand embroidery PDF patterns and stitch alongs here on my YouTube channel. So I'll leave a link here for my playlist for all of those. And thanks so much for joining me today here on St. Roger Street, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!